Queen's speech will also pave the way for Part 2 of HS2, releasing funding for the early stages of the design of the high-speed rail link. Now, much has been made of its potential for allowing economic developments to reach parts of the country it doesn't normally reach. But how much truth is there to that? David Grossman has been off to find out.
There are many arguments made for high-speed rail, but the one the politicians routinely reach for is this one.
We do need to rebalance the economy. It has been too dominated by the south and by certain industries, and I think high-speed rail will really help to create a better balanced economy.
It's their go-to argument whenever the £34 billion price tag for HS2 is questioned.
I think that will help heal the north-south divide, which for so long has blighted the British economy.
You can see why the politics of high-speed rail is attractive to the government. And the economic case also seems to have a certain plausibility about it. If you halve the journey times to northern cities, well, companies will be queuing up to relocate their business away from the south. But is there any actual evidence that this could or will happen? Is there any actual evidence that if there is an economic dividend to be had from high-speed rail, it will go to the north and not the south?
If we look at the evidence from economic analysis, if we look at the evidence from experience elsewhere around the world, it's very difficult to prove a link between building high-speed rail lines and closing regional inequalities or dealing with regional disparities. Very difficult indeed. On the contrary, to the extent that there is evidence, it seems to suggest that capital cities gain the most from the building of these new high-speed rail lines.
There's no point me hanging around here waiting for the first high-speed train to Manchester or Leeds. They won't be departing until 2033 at the very earliest. However, high-speed rail is not a new idea. There are plenty of cities in the world that already have it, where the economic impacts are well documented.
This can probably claim to be the world's first high-speed railway, the propeller-driven Zeppelin train that hit 125 miles an hour in Germany in 1931. But perhaps we need a more modern example.
Here in Spain, they've had the future for 20 years already. Way back in 1992, the government built a high-speed rail line between Madrid and Seville. The objective was clear. They wanted to spread the wealth, the jobs, the opportunity away from the rich capital in the north to the impoverished south. Reverse the geography and you have a very familiar argument. What I want to find out is, after 20 years of having high-speed rail, has any of this actually worked?
I certainly didn't meet anyone in Spain who wanted to go back to the days before high-speed rail, least of all the president of the company that runs the trains.
Most of the people were quite critical with first developing a line between Madrid and Seville instead of Madrid and Barcelona or other more popular places, but it was really successful. Most of the people welcome again train transportation. There's been a lot of development in Seville and also in the surroundings of Madrid, and so the balance of this first high-speed train in 1992 was really successful. The Spanish experience is that the territory is very suitable for high-speed trains, and I think that this is the case for the United Kingdom too.
The journey to Seville now takes 2¼ hours as opposed to 7 hours by train and sometimes 10 by car before the advent of high-speed rail. That's undoubtedly been a huge benefit to the people who already had to make the trip. But, say economists, the Andalusia region itself hasn't benefited nearly as much as you might expect.
The problem with Sevilla and with the south of Spain is that there is a lack of other conditions, like, for example, skills and people, attitudes, diversification of the economy. So the high-speed train contributes, but a little. You know, nowadays to promote a region, you need innovation, you need education, you need good attitudes of people, and those things in Sevilla, in the south of Spain, they are not promoted or developed.
Have many companies relocated their operation from Madrid to Seville?
No, I don't think so. No.
In Seville, I've come to see a company that has relocated and loves high-speed rail.
So in this area here we perform a set of tests.
HS2 Rugby sources and tests the components that go into satellites. They relocated their particular bit of space from Madrid to Seville in 1992.
It has been a tremendous improvement in terms of time. I mean, it's now, as you possibly know, it takes between 2¼ and 2½ hours to get there from center to center.
But right next door to this high-tech lab, there is another story to tell. This was the site of the 1992 Seville Expo. The high-speed rail line was part of the futuristic package. When the expo closed, the local government offered very generous incentives to companies like HS2 Rugby to move in, and it was this and the other subsidies that tempted them to relocate, not just the line.
We moved mainly because 3 reasons. The first one was the support that the local government and the city council was providing at that time to companies moving. Second one was the existence of a very good technical university here in Seville, so it's a good source for highly qualified and motivated professionals. And then the last one that would have been excluding was the existence of good connections with Madrid.
So would you have moved without the availability of this building at a very good rate?
No, possibly not.
This is not that far off what they had in Spain before high-speed rail, so the savings in journey times were huge, far higher than promised for the UK, which is already pretty well connected. That's why a Labour government review concluded that such a scheme wasn't worth the cost. And if there are any benefits from reduced journey times for the UK, economists say they're likely to go to firms in London.
More productive firms in cities like London will be able to serve distant markets in northern cities much more efficiently from their existing base rather than from bases located in the northern cities. So if the time to market is reduced between London and the northern cities, that's going to mainly benefit firms which are already based in London. Now, that seems to be what happens in most of the cases around the world where these railway lines have been introduced.
So if you had a London office and a Manchester office and high-speed rail comes along, you might be tempted to simply close the Manchester office because you can serve your Manchester market from London.
Yeah, or run that office down over time.
Their lawns or our jobs. That was the slogan of a pro-HS2 leaflet opponents of the scheme portrayed as rich southern bowler-hatted NIMBYs standing in the way of economic regeneration in the north. But finding any clear evidence that that is what would happen has been difficult. Of course, it would be amazing if building something like this, spending $34 billion on a new rail line, didn't create some jobs in places like Manchester and Leeds. But if rebalancing our economic geography is the objective, the question is, could the money be better spent?